That's right.
Aha.
We're in.
So just for the record, it's the public hearing on the proposed capital plan for fiscal year 2027 and onwards. And we've just done the Pledge of Allegiance, and so now it's time for the public hearing. The point is to consider and receive public comment on the proposed highway motorized equipment, capital, fire apparatus, and technology capital plan for the town of Weathersfield for the fiscal 26 through year 25. Brent, you want to start the or who's going to actually start this? Ah,
I'm sorry.
I'm
See this one. Actually, you go. So for now, there's copies of the capital plan right here, also the public hearing schedule and the agenda, and there's a couple of brochures. Here we have something upstairs, but
so please help yourself unless you want me to pass it up to you.
Rika,
Yes.
you should probably read the public hearing notice.
Public hearing notice. All right, the public hearing notice. Notice is hereby given that the select board for the town of Weathersfield shall hold a public hearing on Tuesday, January 13th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. to consider and receive public comments on the proposed highway motorized equipment, fire apparatus, and technology capital plan for the town of Weathersfield for fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2045. A remote option to participate using Zoom is available at the following address. You want me to read that all out? The public hearing shall immediately precede the regular meeting of the select board scheduled for January 13th. The purpose of the capital plan is to stabilize tax rates for taxpayers of the town and to reduce borrowing costs for the town by budgeting an annual amount so that sufficient reserves exist to meet the cost of future planned capital expenditures. By implementing the capital plan, the town estimates cumulative taxpayer savings of $2,720,935 over 20 years. The capital plan is composed of the following sections: the highway motorized equipment section, fire apparatus, and technology. A more detailed summary of the provisions and purpose of the capital plan and the full text of the capital plan are available in the town offices at Martin Memorial Hall and on the town website. If you look at the capital plan, I think you'll probably find it on the town manager's page. Following the public hearing on the capital plan, the select board will begin deliberations on whether to approve the capital plan as proposed.
all right.
And on to you.
So the plan for tonight is to go through the capital plan development process. The highway motorized equipment capital plan will be presented by Ray Stapleton, our highway superintendent. The fire apparatus capital plan will be presented by our fire chief, John Campo. I'll present the technology capital plan, and then we'll look at the capital plan versus an deferred plan and what this means for taxes. We'll do a conclusion and then we'll open it up for questions and discussion. All right. So we can begin by, how did this all start? So the capital plan began last year. We started working on this a few years ago and it became one of the select board's top 3 goals for this year. This capital plan did not happen overnight. It was developed through a deliberate, step-by-step process focused on long-term stability, operational reliability, and reduced financial risk. The goal was to move away from reactive, energy-driven equipment purchases and toward predictable, well-managed replacement schedules that align with best practices as compared to other Vermont towns. So the first step that we went through was we did a complete inventory and a condition assessment on all of our equipment. So we began by taking a hard look at every major piece of equipment in the highway department, in the fire department, and also at our technology. That included age, usage, condition, and maintenance history. This review showed that several pieces of equipment were already past their expected useful life, and others were close behind. Understanding the true condition of our fleet was the foundation of the plan. The second step we did was we established realistic replacement timelines for each type of equipment. These were based on our own experience, manufacturer guidance, and when maintenance costs typically begin to rise. These assumptions are intentionally conservative and designed to replace equipment before it becomes unreliable or excessively expensive to maintain. Why useful life matters. Once equipment reaches a certain age, repair costs rise sharply and warranties expire. A single major repair can cost tens of thousands of dollars. Older equipment is also less fuel efficient and more prone to downtime. Replacing equipment at the right time reduces these risks and helps the town get better resale and residual value. The third step that we went through was replacement cost and residual value analysis. For each piece of equipment, we estimated what it would cost to replace and what it would likely be worth at trade-in at the time that we planned on replacing it. This allowed us to focus on the net cost of replacement rather than just the sticker price. Planning around the net cost gives us much more accurate picture of the town's long-term financial commitment. Step 4, identifying backlog and risk. The analysis showed we already have a backlog of equipment that should have been replaced. Continuing to defer replacement increases the risk of breakdowns, emergency repairs, and unplanned borrowing. Addressing this backlog early was critical to stabilizing both operations and the town's finances. The fifth step we took was a multi-year replacement schedule. Using all of this information that we reviewed and analyzed, we built a multi-year replacement schedule for all highway motorized equipment, fire apparatus, and technology. This spreads out major purchases, avoids clustering large expenses in one year, and allows us to plan replacements around operational needs and seasons. The schedule is flexible and will be updated as actual purchases occur. The sixth step, we did reserve funding analysis. We then evaluated how to pay for the schedule. Instead of borrowing when equipment fails, we analyzed a reserve-based approach where funds are set aside in advance. We reviewed existing balances, prior contributions, and one-time transfers to determine what level of annual funding was needed. So, some people have asked why are we using reserve funding? Reserve funding allows it down to avoid borrowing and paying interest. It creates stable, predictable budget impacts and ensures funds are available when replacements are due. Over the life of this plan, this approach is estimated to save the town nearly $2.7 million in cash savings and interest earnings. And then we went through step 7, which was whether our plan aligns with the best practices as compared to other Vermont municipalities. This approach is consistent with how many Vermont municipalities manage major equipment replacement. It supports long-range planning, improves transparency, and reduces financial surprises. Most importantly, it replaces reactive decision-making with thoughtful planned investments. The last step we did was step 8, which is governance and oversight. The plan includes strong oversight. Each year, the highway department will report on equipment condition, costs, and reserve status, consistent with what the fire chief and then also our IT department would do. The select board would review and approve this funding annually, and the entire plan is reviewed and reconciled every 5 years. Adjustments can be made if conditions or usage changes. We understand this plan as a living document. This is not a static plan. It will be updated after each purchase to reflect actual costs and trading values. That ensures the schedule remains accurate and responsive to real-world experience while maintaining the goal of avoiding unnecessary borrowing. So what's the bottom line? In short, we assessed what we have, planned realistic replacement timelines, built a funding strategy that avoids debt, and put governance in place to keep the plan current. The result is a responsible, transparent approach that protects taxpayers while keeping our highway department and emergency services and also our technology in town reliable and ready to serve the county. We'll now pass the presentation over to the highway department. Ray Stapleton to present on the highway capital plan.
Well, the highway capital plan, the highway department Weathersfield. It's a replacement plan and it's for reliability, safety and cost control. We aren't adding any more equipment with this plan. We're keeping our current fleet. We're actually eliminating one more truck out of the fleet, keeping that for spare. So it isn't asking for more equipment. This plan is to maintain safe, reliable highway operations, replace equipment before failures occur, avoid surprise purchases and borrowing, follow proven municipal standards and practices. All major highway trucks and heavy equipment, the loaders, the grader, the excavator, and all the trucks and the pickup and the 1-ton are all included in this. Has useful life assumptions and replacement cost estimates and a long-term replacement schedule. We're with our equipment, we get a discount when we purchase it. And we're trying to recoup as much of that discount as we can and not ask the taxpayers for more money. If we have some trade-in value in the truck, it's worth $80,000, we traded in. That's less money we have to come up with in tax dollars. That's the theory. Also having it under warranty, you control all the costs for major components and replacements. Yes, stuff will still might break, but it'll be covered under warranty. And all the money can go towards the purchasing of actual equipment instead of repairing it. Current highway fleet, we have 3 10-wheel dump trucks, we have 3 6-wheel dump trucks, an excavator, a grader, a light duty dump truck, 2 loaders, a pickup, and an old tractor. We're gonna keep that fleet. The one thing that will go away is we have a 99 old Mack, that is our spare truck. We just use it for chloride now. And then our 09 will turn into the spare. It's pre-emissions, so it does have a catalytic converter, but it doesn't have DEF fluid. It's fairly basic compared to some of the newer equipment. We're hoping that'll last a very long time. And when it does expire, there is no plan to replace that vehicle at this time. So it's replacement cost of 1.9 million for everything in the fleet all at once if we were to replace it now. Estimated trade-in value is 555,725, and the net replacement cost will be 1.4 million. That's for everything in the fleet. It is very cost effective to take advantage of the residual value of these pieces of equipment. If we don't do that, we have to make up every dime with taxpayer dollars, so we do buy a vehicle longer down the road. Not only that, when the warranty expires, we're gonna have to buy all the parts and repairs on our own. Planned replacement cycles, dump truck is 5 to 7 years. That's where you can get the warranty. At 5 years, it's projected at 95,000 trade-in. at 7 years, it's predicted at 55,000 to 65,000 untraded, estimated. The grader right now, we have it on a 5-year cycle, that seems to be a sweet spot, it's been a couple times where we've missed that, and it's cost more. It has worked, and we try to have a 7-year warranty and then trade it in at 5, so it's even worth more. The excavator, we've never had an excavator, we're estimating 10 years. That might change up or down depending on how well it works. That's one thing, there is a lot of limited, for us, there's a lot of limited experience with this machine. The pickup and the light duty trucks, same thing, 5 to 7 years. And the loader and the tractor are gonna be case by case. Right now, our loader, a 2006, is almost 20 years old, and we have a 1987 Cat that is pretty much bomb proof. You can really work on it, it's a real machine. I would recommend keeping that until it's no longer usable. Put some money into it, rebuild it, keep it for our spare. It is a good piece of equipment to have. Same thing with the 2006 John Deere that's pre-def. It doesn't got a lot of computers on it. I would recommend rebuilding that, putting some funds into that, and prolonging its life for as long as possible. It's not a frontline piece of equipment. It is a vital piece of equipment, but it's not like we use it every single day on a grader or a truck. Why replacement schedule? Repair costs rise sharply after 5 to 7 years. You're guessing. It's not, this is gonna break on this day. We just had a 2016, we put a new radiator in it. The radiator alone was just under $5,000. They're made out of plastic now. Used to be able to bring it over to Ron Fixing Shop and have it patched and fixed and put it back in and go. That's gone. You can't do that anymore with these machines. Our 2012 right now has a wiring issue somewhere that's not allowing it to start. They're assessing it wire by wire. They already know it's not the control, it's not the modules, it's not the starter or anything like that. So that's money that could go towards this capital plan to purchase the equipment, keep it under warranty and stabilize the cost. And then we can spend more of our resources actually getting work done, not chasing this stuff. We have 5 units that are past useful life. That useful life for us is, it's starting to cost more to get them ready for winter, to keep them maintained and have them be reliable. And the parts are starting to get more expensive, like suspension pieces, radiators, more expensive repairs. Continued daily delay increases repair risk, emergency cost, and borrowing pressure. It's not good to get into a situation where we're short a truck, where we need to plow, and we've got to buy something and not have it planned. Again, this whole plan is based on what we have for equipment in our rotation and the best way to purchase the equipment for the best cost to the taxpayers. It's not, that's it in a nutshell. How we pay for it is a reserve-based strategy dedicated to equipment replacement reserve. Funds set aside for replacement is before replacement is needed and minimizes or avoids borrowing. Creates predictable annual cost. Right now, we have our budget. We have a 2.5% increase hypothetically. We put in a special article to buy another piece of equipment. It passes, and then a year later, that payment goes into your, like behind the scenes, goes into your tax bill. We are paying for this stuff now. We're borrowing money, we're making the interest payments, we're buying this equipment, and we're paying this much money. This is how we can save significant amount of money over 20 years. Reserve versus debt, borrowing equals interest and future tax pressure. Reserve funding saves interest, stabilizes budgets, and keeps control local. Estimated interest savings is $950,000 over the course of 20 years on this plan in our department alone. That's a significant amount of money. To me, that's huge. So. Beginning balance right now in our reserve is 146,305 currently. In 2026, we did put 25,000 in, and then we had some flood recovery funds left over. We added another 63. So our current balance is 234,945 in that reserve. So that's our starting point that we're going to be building on, hopefully. Our planned fiscal purchases for 27 is 500,000. It would be the same schedule, it would be 292 annually, and the goal, we know, equipment borrowing after fiscal year 30. At the point where the vehicles are on that 5 to 7 year rotation, you will see a reduction because you'll get more on the trade-in. Right now, the vehicles aren't worth the target for the trade-ins, so there is an adjustment. Plus, we still have the payments going out for the equipment we are already paying for now. So there's a little bit while for it to stabilize. Multi-year plans to purchase the spreads. We spread the purchase out over time, avoids cost spikes, and reserve balance remains positive, which is in the benefit for all of us. Where we're headed, we have existing debt on several units or pieces of equipment right now. The greater debt ends in 27, or ends with this budget with a replacement if everything passes. The excavator will be paid off in 30, and then no highway equipment debt is online after fiscal year 30. Key benefits, predictable cost again. There's a lot of cost to keeping the equipment longer that is behind the numbers, like the maintenance costs, the repairs, the downtime, losing that value in your resale. That's all stuff that people don't really see in the forefront, but it's there. Lower long-term spending, fewer uncovered breakdowns, being under warranty, the items that do break, that you will have to replace brake pads if they go bad. That's something that's not covered. But the major components that cost the most money will be covered. Safer, more reliable equipment, and no surprise borrowing or no reactionary. This is an extremely proactive plan instead of being reactive. And I believe it's very transparent. Everybody can see exactly what it is we're doing. Built-in controls, we'll be reviewing an annual condition and cost reporting each piece of equipment, annual budget approval, and a 5-year plan review to adjust down, hopefully. Documented adjustments when needed, so you don't just have a knee-jerk reaction, you actually have a report, complete analysis, and then figure out what's happening and how to adjust it properly instead of spiking and making a spur of the moment decisions. We track reserve balance versus need, actual budget and purchase budgeted costs, maintenance costs by unit, downtime and availability, and trade-in values are achieved. Those are what we can monitor to make sure we're on track for this plan working. Bottom line is this replaces reactive spending with planning, saves interest and reduces risk, stabilizes taxes over time, and keeps highway services reliable. And saves quite a bit of money.
Thanks, Ray, I appreciate it. I'm gonna ask Chief Compo to come up and present him fire apparatus equipment replacement. Great.
Yeah, everybody. All right, good evening. So there are some differences on the fire apparatus plan compared to that of the highway plan. I'll point a couple of those out through the slideshow, and then I'm gonna recap on that at the end because I do think it's pertinent to the conversation tonight. So the purpose of our plan, we need safe, reliable vehicles. Having a planned schedule will stabilize the capital costs and stabilize tax rates. And prevent that roller coaster tax rate that we've seen in the past. This plan covers all of our major apparatus. It does establish some useful lives. We have projected costs based on what we've seen over the last 10 or so years. They're working down with COVID. We're hoping that those increases have stabilized. It does set reserve fund targets, and it gives us a long-term replacement schedule. We currently have 3 pumpers or engines, depending upon how you interpret those. A tanker. We did have a ladder truck that has been deemed a total loss. I will speak about that in a moment. We're working towards getting a rescue truck to replace that. We currently have a forestry vehicle that will become a utility pickup, a mini pumper, and then a brush/forestry vehicle. So combining those essentially. The total replacement cost is just over 5.8 million, with a residual trade-in value of 132,000. 5.2, bringing the net replacement cost of $5,675,292. So the ladder truck was deemed total loss related to the incident in early November. The town received or is receiving this week a check for $76,500 that will be applied to the reserve fund for the rescue truck. This move was made to reduce the amount we're spending on maintenance for a vehicle that we weren't using a lot. I brought to the select board that we'd like to purchase a rescue truck. We have not used the ladder as much as it had in the past, and with rising costs to replace ladder trucks and maintenance costs that are associated with those on an annual and also ongoing basis. A rescue truck that we can utilize for not only motor vehicle accidents, but technical rescues, water related rescues, and all of the things that we are seeing more of in town. That's the direction that we could kind of plan. The replacement cycles is very different on the fire side than the highway side. And the reason for that is a huge piece is usage. The highway equipment does get run a lot more all year. Our equipment is run more sporadically, generally has lower duty cycles when it is being run. The warranties are not the same on fire apparatus as they are conventional highway type apparatus equipment. And the cost of much of our equipment is much higher. So for us, it makes a lot more sense to keep things longer. We don't tend to have mechanical issues as early on. We do still see them later in life, but keeping things for the 20 to 30 years maximizes our benefit and maximizes the money that we can save. As I mentioned, the liability does decline. Major repairs can be all over the place. We've seen that already this year with a couple of trucks. I expect to be above the budget line for vehicle maintenance this year. We did increase that line next year to hopefully plan for some of these vehicles that are aging. Parts can become obsolete. We are trying to make sure that any trucks we purchase don't have that happen. And safety features become more and more. There are newer variations or newer renditions of the standards that are required for fire trucks, and those safety features are in place because of accidents, because bad things happen and people are injured or killed. And then the last piece would be that planned replacement avoids emergency spending. I'd rather have a plan than come to the board and say, this truck is absolutely not repairable, whatever the case may be, and we need $700,000 or $800,000, and that was not something that we had thought about ahead of time. So NFPA 1901 guides vehicle manufacturing for fire apparatus. That document covers a lot in how those are manufactured. We also spoke with manufacturers. We have a very close relationship with Ninja Machine and Cornish. They've been involved in a lot of our planning and thoughts on apparatus in town. And this plan focuses on safety, compliance, and reliability would be key as well. So having a dedicated fund and planning those annual contributions reduces the long-term interest costs. Instead of borrowing money and paying interest, we can be making money on that money that we have saved in the bank. Current reserve fund balance, $172,040.56. The proceeds of the insurance were added or are going to be added. And the select board authorized up to $150,000 for a used rescue truck to replace the ladder. And I don't have the balance after that. And then this plan does have replacement for the current brush truck that sits at Station 2, which is the old West Weathersfield station. That has had some significant mechanical difficulties and we have moved that up a year or two from what we had planned. I think 3 or 4 years ago. To get that replaced so that we can not have further mechanical issues and potentially have to replace an engine. We started out at $100,000 for this fiscal year 27 with an annual increase of $15,555, which supports the full replacement schedule and avoid so we can avoid borrowing in the future. I mentioned the purchase of spread to avoid large cost spikes. This reserve or this capital plan will help. The reserve fund will balance fluctuates. So there is a schedule in some of this paperwork that shows based on withdrawals, there's some significant fluctuation in the balance. But it covers the purchases and the schedule will be updated after each purchase and we'll get to it in a minute. Same as the highway, we're gonna talk about it every 5 years in depth and annually at the board level. We currently have debt on the most recently purchased tanker that matures in fiscal year 30, and if this is approved at town meeting, we will not have debt after fiscal year 30. So benefits, predictable capital costs, maximize trading value, reduce repair, improve safety, and the biggest piece here for myself and I believe Ray was the avoided interest costs of over $1 million in 20 years. We'll speak with the board annually. The reserve fund is funded through the budget process. We will again, just like the highway, we're going to review that in 5 years, and then if we need to make adjustments based on inflation or change in need or whatever that case may be, that'll be presented with documentation to support it. The cost impacts to the fleet, improved reliability and lower maintenance and fuel costs. We will have warranty on new units. I mentioned that will not last the life of the unit, but that we will still have warranty on those and reduce downtime during emergencies. I will say that over the past few months, fortunately, we've been able to shuffle some trucks between the two stations, but it's been a number of times that multiple trucks have been broken down in the shop and trying to balance how we can still serve the town the best way. So the reserve fund performance will be monitored and the actual versus planned cost as we move forward. If we see that the need is slightly different than what we budgeted, we can make those adjustments. We can look at maintenance trends by vehicle age. We've seen the expenses go up after that 15 to 20 years. This will allow us to make sure our apparatus is available, and we will also monitor the resale, the actual resale versus the projected value. Before we go to the next slide, not only was the purchase price based on today's values plus a percentage each year, the residual sale price of all of these vehicles was based on estimations from today plus a percentage every year. So those projections could change a little bit. So key takeaways: proactive planning helps protect public safety. We replace the roller coaster spending with stable, predictable tax bills. We minimize debt and we support reliable emergency vehicles for decades.
All right, thanks, Josh. All right, the next piece of our long-term capital plan is a technology replacement plan. The purpose of this plan is to maintain reliable, secure, and up-to-date technology, stabilize annual funding through plan reserve contributions, optimize life cycle costs by replacing devices before performance or security degrade, and align with Vermont municipal IT best practices. Our current inventory includes 12 desktops, 13 laptops, 12 iPads or tablets. Our replacement strategy for this is to replace desktops and laptops every 5 years, which is consistent with our IT contract. Our IT contract requires to replace it every 5 years, because software becomes outdated and so forth. So this replacement schedule is in line with our IT contract. iPads and tablets every 7 years. The rationale is devices degrade over time, replacement reduces cybersecurity risk, and this supports modern software and operational needs. The total replacement cost of all of our technology is $49,000. Our reserve contribution request is $9,500 annually, with contributions increasing by $500 every 3 years. This also avoids borrowing and interest. With a replacement schedule on the screen that shows the additions and the withdrawals and the balance for the next 10 years. The benefits of this and justification is predictable costs and budgeting, improved performance and reliability, reduced downtime and maintenance costs, cybersecurity and data protection compliance, aligns with Vermont municipal IT best practices, governance, funding, and monitoring. I'll do an annual review of this, 5-year plan updates, adjustments based on condition and security needs, funding and strategy, pay as you go, via reserve fund, budget reports to include replacement items, costs, and operating impacts, monitoring metrics, fund performance versus needs, actual versus budgeted costs, system uptime, maintenance, and cybersecurity compliance. I'm going to move on now to
We're pretty proud of that.
this one. Yeah, it should be, it's right up online under the select board packet.
That's on page 31, Carl,
Yeah, that was.
of this,
Yeah.
Thanks. So this is our current plan, which is the first chart to the left. And as you can see, the blue line there indicates principal, the orange indicates interest, and the green indicates debt payments. It fluctuates significantly because as you borrow, you're borrowing a high cost, the interest is greater. As the loan matures, the interest reduces. The chart on the right demonstrates the green line is our principal and the blue line is the interest, and that indicates those going away, maturing in FY30, and then converting to a cash basis purchase plan system. The orange line is actually accumulated interest earnings. So we calculated the amount of money that our reserve funds would earn based on 20 years of prior interest. 20 years of prior interest earnings on savings accounts. And the orange indicates that the bank will actually pay us rather than us paying the bank on interest. And we can discuss what to do with that as we have accumulated reserve interest gains. We could use it kind of like we do fund balance and pay down by, reduce the tax rate each year, or use it in some other beneficial way for the town. Capital plan funding options. I presented several different options to the select board. Option one is going directly into the capital plan next year. And what this does, this option one, it shows a full cash basis for replacing everything. And that'll cost $9,697,000 over the next 10 years. Option two was borrowing $250,000 next year in order to transition to a capital plan. It does become a little bumpy because then you're not only are you budgeting in FY28 for the capital plan, but then you're also you have a new loan for $250,000 in budget, the principal and interest payment. Option 3 is what we're currently doing. So this is, if we just kept things the same, we continued borrowing and paying interest over the next 20 years, we'd spend 12,460,000. The chart over on the left shows annually what it would cost. So obviously you can see here, it's significantly cheaper to move to a cash system. And it's pretty clear that, you know, when you pay interest, it's not doing anything beneficial to the town. Which is what prompted this capital plan effort to begin with. So why should we move forward with capital plan? It reduces long-term costs. By saving in advance and paying cash for major purchases, the town avoids costly borrowing. Over the next 20 years, this approach is projected to avoid millions in interest payments, generate investment earnings instead of bank interest, save taxpayers an estimated 2.7 million compared to borrowing, and a state instead tax. They don't have that roller coaster tax rate anymore. It's predictable, it's transparent. In my opinion, it's in the best interest of the town. Stabilizes taxes over time. Large infrequent purchases such as fire apparatus and highway equipment cause sharp spikes in taxes when funded through borrowing. The capital plan spreads costs evenly year to year, creates predictable, steady tax impacts, eliminates future surprise budget increases, and through the capital plan, the town transitions to a fully cash funded capital program with no equipment borrowing at FY30. This plan reduces reliability and improves reliability and public safety, replacing equipment on a planned schedule, reduces breakdowns and costly emergency repairs, which we're dealing with a lot of this year. Keeps fire and highway vehicles safe and reliable, minimizes downtime during storms and emergencies, improves efficiency and fuel economy. This means better service for residents and safer working conditions for town staff. This protects the taxpayer's investment. Planned replacement allows the town to trade in equipment while it still has strong resale value, avoid sinking money into aging vehicles with rising repair costs, make informed, transparent decisions rather than reactive ones. This plan follows proven best practices in Vermont. Many Vermont towns use capital reserve funding to manage infrastructure responsibly. This plan aligns with best municipal financial practices, improves transparency and long-range planning, strengthens the town's overall financial health for the next 20 years. What is the capital plan doing for taxes? The capital plan provides full funding without the need for additional borrowing. The total tax impact is approximately $120 per 100,000 of property value annually. It's $119, which equates to $9.91 monthly. For the average Weathersfield home valued at $213,000, this equals approximately $255.44 per year, which equates to $21.25 per month on the average property value. While this represents a larger initial step, it eliminates future borrowing, it ends interest payments sooner, and results in lower total costs over time. The bottom line, the capital plan is about planning ahead instead of reacting later. By improving the capital plan, Weathersfield pays less in interest and avoids debt, stabilizes future tax rates, and protects essential services. Invest responsibly in the town's infrastructure. This plan reflects a long-term commitment to financial stability, public safety, and responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars. All right, questions and discussion. I'll pass the meeting over to you, Kelly.
Thank you. Mr. Wyman?
Hi, Paul Wyman, point of order. Kelly wasn't here to open the meeting. The meeting is in the hands of the vice chair. The vice chair has to get it and it has to go back to the chair if you're gonna do that.
I have to do what, say
You
again?
have to give it back to Kelly.
It's all yours, baby. Okay. Does that work? Does that work?
Sure.
Okay.
Carl Wyman, there's just a little part in here about the property taxes and the impact. And what I'm curious about is at what point, what is the payoff for the taxpayer? I mean, we're going to provide this big increase in taxes. Yeah, and that also concerning, but if we vote for it, we're gonna have an increase in the taxes, but you're telling us it's going to save us. So at what point does it save us? How many years does it take to save us? Could there be a graph provided that shows, a low value, medium value, a high value home? Is it gonna be 4 years, 7 years? At what point will it have been smarter for us to have voted yes for this? The other thing that I'm concerned about, I'm fortunate, I sit at a lot of kitchen tables at, each year, and, money comes up with families. The taxes, the appraisal that's coming up has got most people concerned, worried, scared. And not knowing how your new tax rate's going to adjust with this proposal, I think is unnerving for a lot of people. Not saying that it won't work, it's not a good plan. Still trying to decide that, but I think that the timing of it is gonna be hard for people in Weathersfield because they don't know what their tax rate's going to be. So that's a concern, and also a point, is the payoff.
So. This plan begins to save the taxpayer money in year one. Because if we don't move forward with a cash basis system, we are going to borrow money. And then when we borrow money, we're gonna pay interest to the bank. So it's immediately saving the town money.
It looks to me like I'm gonna pay so much per 100,000 more, and that doesn't look like it's saving money to me. But at some point, it looks like it could.
It does, because if you look at it in simplest terms, we're gonna have to replace this equipment. And we can either do it with cash or we can do it with borrowing. And when we start to borrow, principal and interest payments are gonna accumulate, and it's going to exceed the amount that we're requesting per year. Also, $2.7 million in savings and interest and accumulated payment interest to the town. If you provide that by 20 years, I think it's roughly 145,000 in savings on average per year. So charts have been developed and presented, but it's difficult to look at. I mean, we could accumulate what principal and interest payments collectively would look and amortize them over 20 years. And then you can put it side by side with the requested reserve contributions to see.
That would be a good start.
But overall, equipment needs to be replaced. And we can either do that with cash or we can borrow and pay interest.
So this plan is for everybody to chip in ahead of time.
Yeah.
And so we could do that with the school, we could do that with pretty much everything in town, we could pre-fund it and we'd save money.
Sort of. There's a point where using loans is beneficial for large water districts, like when you're a water district project, for example, and we can get a 50% subsidy to do that project and a low interest loan. So if there's opportunities like that available, then I would say we'd go after them. But for highway trucks and fire trucks and technology, we did have one grant back in 2020 during COVID when they gave us a local government expense reimbursement grant, and we were able to replace all town technology. But I haven't seen anything since like that. But to answer your question, when will it start saving the taxpayer money? Next year, because we will not be paying money to the bank in interest. It's just money. When you're paying interest, it's just money going out the window. It's not money that we're using in the town for any particular purpose. We're paying the bank the money, which is great, but
It's not gonna save me money next year.
it depends on how you look at it.
Nate,
Brendan, I think my interpretation of that graph request would be a graph based on the taxpayer, not the town. So like, hey, if we continue on strategy one, we can predict the tax rate would be this over the 20 years. And if we, implement this capital plan, what would the tax rate look like over 20 years? I think that would show where that break even point is, right? Because I think that's what you're asking is where's that break even point where if I pay a little bit now over 20 years, in theory, my tax rate should increase less than it would if I didn't, right? That's what I keep hearing. But being able to see where that break even point is, I think it would, from the taxpayer perspective, not necessarily from the maintenance perspective, might be helpful. I don't know. That's the way I heard that question.
Mike,
One of the things that we're accustomed to seeing on our warning, town meeting warning, is not in budget. That is when we make our purchases for graders, loaders, dump trucks, whatever this equipment is that we're talking about in the capital plan. So when we create the budget and you have the articles for the general fund, highway fund, and solid waste, that's an enterprise fund. Those budgets do not include those purchases. So we sit here and we say, well, taxes are going up 2 cents or 3 cents or 6 cents, whatever it happens to be, but that doesn't include, that's just the budget that we prepared, does not include those not in budget items like a grader or a loader or dump truck. Those are very expensive pieces of equipment that you borrow money on. And the first thing that happens is you vote on that in March. And we don't really see it happen and hit the budget until the following year. So we could have a budget where we're at 2 cents and we vote for a loader and a grader because our budget's down and it looks like it's a good time to vote on buying that. But next year, something could happen that hits us and that budget's already going to be up 6 or 7 cents. And now you've got the two things you voted on last year that hit that budget on top of it. Now you're up 9, 10, 11 cents. We've seen that kind of stuff happen. I think what we have to get used to is if you do a plan like this, you're no longer going to see that not in budget purchase because you're doing that for the next 20 years in one vote on this. And that payoff. So we have Brendan, where are we at this year with the general fund, highway fund increase and solid waste? The total that I know we voted on it last night, but I don't have
So
that.
it's 3.88% overall. If the budget passes as proposed, it'll add $55 per 100,000 in property value of $4.58 monthly.
What is the pennies per hundred on the tax rate?
Pennies.
But yeah, I think it was 2.4 on the general. What was it on the highway?
I need to think first. Can't remember off the top of my head. And
Yeah, I couldn't either. Sure, but I'm was it 8 cents or something like that total?
no,
Between all of them? Because we had the increase in the highway because of the lack of
I feel that fund balance, correct.
I think it was.
The total is $116 annually on the average property value for the 13,000.
Any on the grand list is 33,373.
34. Right, that wasn't the question though. What is the penny increase per hundred for all of the budgets that we're voting on?
1 second.
General fund, highway fund, solid
I
waste.
think it was 8 cents or something.
I that's what I thought. It was like eight something
I
cents.
remember, I don't have that.
If we had it, what I'm getting at is if it's 8 cents from just our budgets and we had, let's say, a grader to purchase, we might be adding 2 or 3 cents. Maybe there's 2 things that we're purchasing that adds 2 or 3 cents to that amount. for the next 4 or 5 years.
Fair point.
And then you're gonna buy something else next year, and you're gonna buy something else the year after. That's where that roller coaster comes from that goes like this. Is when something has to be replaced. Sometimes, we've had budgets that come in and we look at those budgets and it's like, Jesus, we really can't go at another 2 or 3 cents this year. Let's kick it down the road. And then something else happens and they start to snowball. And that's where you end up with and that is stabilized. That I think is part of the payoff. The other part is kind of invisible, but it's the interest. You're talking $3 million over nearly $3 million in savings over 20 years. That's a lot of equipment.
Where's the point now?
I think it starts right around year 30 when you no longer when you're actually at your full cash investment in your reserve accounts.
Year 30.
FY 30.
FY 30. 4 years.
3 years.
3 years. Yeah, 3-year budget.
This is the.
3 years out. But that's,
It'll start kicking.
well, I think Brandon's right. It starts to kick in immediately because you've got this high cost in this first year. That
Every year.
no, that'll go down, and it also will go down. Like from last night's meeting, there's a proposal. Depends on where we end up with the audits when the audits come through. But if we have $46,000 left over in fund balance, surplus, in other words, the plan is to take that 46,000 and put it in, and that would lower the tax next year, which would be required to go into this plan. Remember?
Yep. Into the reserve.
Into the reserve, correct, which would reduce the amount necessary to raise the taxes, which is almost penny and a half.
I
The rate there.
agree, a break even graph would make it, would be a powerful visual for taxpayers, I think.
Mr. Fuller, do you still want to talk?
Yeah, I know, but I didn't think we were gonna get into debate. We got people from the public here, which I'm one of, and it's already an hour into it. I don't understand. This is also a philosophical change on buying. My father was on the select board when we bought the first Mack dump truck that was over-spec'd the last 20 years. I was on the select board when we bought the last one. We had 5 of the same thing that was over-spec'd that lasted for a longer time. It depends what you buy. This plan changes that. You wanna get rid of things on every 5 years. I would strongly debate the residual value of any fire truck under that fire proposal, because you can go down on any fire department right now, and we witnessed it ourselves, where used fire trucks are virtually worth nothing. I would not make that assumption on that. Machinery is one thing, fire apparatus is not. There are other things to consider. I would back up exactly what Mr. Wyman said about the town manager opened the door on this. When he said about the financial surprises. I learned a couple of things today. I'm old enough to be on Social Security, and in January, the rate is 2.8%, of which they claimed 1.4 to 1.5, taking it away from Medicare. That leaves 1.4 for any senior in town to try to balance something that says you only have to pay $20 a month more in taxes. Last year, I stood on the floor of the town meeting and asked not to pass that fire article for a reason. It pushed all the money onto property taxes, even though the manager claimed on his proposal that it was only gonna raise our taxes by about so many dollars a month. My taxes with the same property raised $800. You get the tax bill, it is what it is. I'd like to advise the board under this thing, and I would advocate that this be postponed for 1 year. I agree with Mr. Wyman that it may not be a bad plan, but some things need to sort out before. I learned today, last Thursday, and it got confirmed through email and voice for the Vermont Department of Taxes, for instance, that all property in current use will face a 10% of the most current year's grand list as a penalty to remove that land. That is a big deal for Weathersfield because we didn't reappraise since 2009. So our values were about $1,000 an acre. So the penalty stands there. The day after the new reappraisal happens here in May or June, it moves to that current value. People in town need to know this kind of information. It's a big deal. So your penalty could rise by 200 or 300% overnight. Snap of a finger. I also learned today a very disturbing thing. I happened to speak with John Harrison this morning about it. He says, "You're right, Dave," but I had no idea that it rose to this level. We have a single taxpayer in Weathersfield that's on the grand list today for $51 million. The tax bill that company pays is $1,377,814. Their grand list value has already been marked up because of their infrastructure improvement. Therefore, my assertion is, and I've sat on that board a long time to know this, they're not going to go up much higher on the new reappraisal because they've already got there. That equals 12% of the entire Weathersfield tax income, including school. It was shocking. I thought they might have been at like 18 million. I got a copy of the tax bill today from the town hall. Those numbers were updated on 1/13/2026, so it's like 3 days ago, whatever. So this is what I predict is going to happen, which will implicate the plan, the 5-year plan that the manager has done with this. He calls it a lack of borrowing. It's not the interest that matters, folks. It's the cost of the things. It's buying something that costs $400,000 that matters. It's not the $7,000 or $8,000 in interest. This is what I think is going to happen with reappraisal. That power plant is going to stay about the same value while all of us goes up significantly. Therefore, when you have that total tax grand list and you back into it with the budgets, you're going to see a significant implication on that. They're also using, it's a little bit more complicated, and I hope I didn't go over everybody's head with that. They're using the CLA, which they can legally do, but that's now at 89. There's on your tax rates. Not 64 like it is. It's the state allowed us to go to 89. Just read your tax bill. Already did it. And so that's the difference between this plan by saying we're starting something, we're 1 year in, and then it could fall flat because of these surprises. I don't know if it's a good plan or a bad plan, but I know the fire apparatus from history, and I know there's a change between keeping things 5 years. We used to keep those Mack trucks for 20. There's a difference. So it's not exactly what we've been doing in the past, and it's a little bit fuzzy to call it what we've been doing, and we're just going to do things a little different, front load the money. I'll close by saying, I wonder how many residents save all the money up front before they buy anything. I don't. I farm free forever, and I can't do that. I don't save $100,000 for a tractor and then buy it. That's what the proposal is asking us to do: front load all the money. And Carl's right. We're not saving any money. We're spending money. And we may not be spending as much money, but we're spending money. Thank you.
Dave, I know this isn't supposed to be a debate, but there are a couple bits of information that I think we need to correct. And I think I've got it right. The CLA discussion. When you bring up the personal property tax on a large business, something over $1 million. And the CLA, you mentioned the 89. That does not apply to them. That applies to us. Ours follows the CLA. And I've seen the CLA for this year, it's 58. Point something. That's what they pay, so immediately following the reappraisal, they go to 100% on that property. Right now, they're paying, what last year's, what was last year's,
60 something.
60, yeah, it wasn't it, yeah. Right now, this year's gonna be 58 something. That's what they pay the property tax on, is that CLA. They were taken out of that, the rest of us weren't. And that's going to 100%. I mean, we should have done the reappraisal a lot sooner. We've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on those taxes alone over the past 4 or 5 years.
Tomorrow morning, I wish I brought the copy with me. Don't get the copy of that tax bill. That company was 89.4% of the CLA, as was everybody else here. The state made it, I know what you're saying. I sat there, I know it 64 last year. For some reason, the state adjustment on all of our tax bills, go home and look yours up when you go home. It's 89.4. That was the same thing on that tax bill that was adjusted 1/13/2026. I know what I saw. I have a copy at home. I regret not bringing.
Of the Velco tax?
Yes, so it was no difference in the business portion of that. The whole thing struck me as, I don't often, you guys have heard this before, I don't often get surprised financially. This one was a sticker shock. Just under $1 million to the school, the company pays. The town, 400,000. Well, the total tax bill is 1,377. Wow. Anyway, my point of that, bringing that whole thing up was that I don't see their appraisal rising. And I see all of us rising. It will have an implication on the settled tax rate after reappraisal.
August.
Thanks, sir. So I first of all, I noticed that there's 3 residents of Plains Road here tonight, so we gotta have at least one seat on the select board. Action Turner, just throwing that out there.
My sense is up.
I'm joking. So Mr. Watkins.
See, nobody here was a fine road.
Everyone's like. So Carl had a good point, and I like the way that that Nate clarified it, and I kind of think I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the taxpayer, you know, and I think that the one question they're gonna ask, because they're not at this hearing, they weren't at the select board, they weren't at the budget committee meeting, so there's gonna be a lot of chatter. And I think that it's an education thing, and I think that the question there in the back of their minds is, okay, I own a $200,000 house. If I vote for all these special articles, okay, I can see it says 3.88%. If I vote for all these special articles, what's my percent increase on my tax bill? You know, well, is it now 6%, 7%, or like you pointed out, the 120 per 100,000. So from the taxpayer standpoint, is how much is this going to cost me? The very next question, if not the first question, goes back to Mr. Wyman's and Mr. Fuller's point, which is, okay, if this is the budget for this year, and this is the increase if I do this capital plan, if I'm looking out at the next 10 or 20 years, you're talking about saving off interest alone substantial amount, 2 million something, but it's their question for them to digest and understand this is, what's the budget look like without a capital plan incrementally each year? What's the budget with a capital plan each year? And if that can be done simply for them to understand, that will make their decisions easier. Because in this, with a reappraisal looming with lots of question marks and unknowns and fears, that's looming. And then on the other side of the coin is the school budget. And I'm hearing, is it around 12% is what I'm hearing? So that's a double-digit increase. We've had about 5 years of very large increases. I think it's about 41% over 5 years. So the average taxpayer, we have an older population, many of them on fixed incomes. They are trying to decide, what can I afford? I want to vote yes. You know, they want to go in there and just vote yes for everything. But the problem is, they are owed a very clear understanding of what they're voting for and what it will cost them. And we also owe it to, are we ready to do this capital plan? Is it something that we can afford as taxpayers? Are we, because me personally, on a personal basis, I'm a little bit torn. Because I like the principles of the capital plan, and I like the idea of not paying interest. Like Kubota doesn't charge interest, which is great. But I don't like paying interest on anything, you know? But at the same token, I'm like, right now I'm leaning towards a no vote on the school budget because I know a lot of it comes from the supervisory union and a lot of that comes from special ed and paras, not teachers. Where I love what Weathersfield School does with their budget, but I don't see the value on the huge increase on the special and supervisory. Not when the cost of living increase was 2.8%, not when the town's living within its means at 3.88%. So it's tough because you're looking at a huge education cost increase and you're looking at a capital plan chunk. So I think that we, you know, at budget committee, select board, we kind of owe it to the taxpayers to make it very, very clear. If you vote for this capital plan, this is the increase that it will cost. Year over year, this is the difference it will make. All of us will be replaced in different roles in the future. And that goes back to Dave's point about the fidelity of the planning and the philosophical discussions. I think he had some very valid points about life cycle. So there's philosophical discussions that will change year by year from board members and experience, what your experiences is with equipment. So I'm here tonight undecided across the board. But I think that the more we can give fidelity to the voters, the more we can help them be educated. And I think that when you get 2 months from town meeting day, I think there's an opportunity going into town meeting for people to feel well informed. So thank you for your time.
Less than 2 months.
Leslie, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Dave, there was another question that David had, I think Brandon is probably the best guy to answer, and that's waiting another year. Yeah, or maybe it was a statement that he made, but it put it off for a year, and there was a reason that you would recommend not doing that.
Well, we'll have to borrow next year to meet our capital demands. So we'll just be prolonging the pay.
Dave?
In order to save some on the ballot, because I saw some of the articles and I'm just like, there's a lot of them. I would advise the board maybe to potentially remove the third one and just stick that amount of money in the general fund budget. That's what I would do, which I'm not going to do. I think that the voters have enough confidence in you to have an amount of money to support the administration in that mode, and I'm not saying that, you know, 10,000, or you may not need the 10,000 in a year, but we've done that in the past where it'd be like 8,000 and just roll it into the general fund budget for technology. I don't think.
Remove Article 12, that's what you're asking for.
Yeah, you put my glasses on. Yeah, I just think,
Technology one.
yes, I think that Brandon had said before that he had bought a bunch of computers and other things that were necessary. I think voters have an easy time in today's world to understand that. I'm not sure that we have to vote on that separately as a separate issue. I really don't. I think we should be taking it up. You might not need quite so much either, since we've shopped out the police, because they were, I think that they buy like a bunch of laptops and things to do.
This does reconcile that, so it doesn't include those anymore.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm just looked at how many articles to be voted on, and just to simplify things. I wouldn't have a hard issue with saying that that's, you rotate that to whatever, and you might buy like 2 or 3 a year. Don't you do that now?
It hasn't been done with a plan like this. But I guess the answer would be no. We've just been reacting.
Didn't it go over to, what is it, CCI? I mean, I was sitting there when the request came to buy a bunch of, what was it, laptops or something? I don't know.
Well, got hands everywhere. People black out spoken yet.
Thank you. My question kind of is moving, and actually Dave had a really good point with taking the technology out and just routing that to the federal funds. Kind of makes sense there. But my question is with the capital plan here. Everybody's thinking about reappraisal, it's, you know, the elephant in the room, really. We say we go forward on the capital plan this year, hypothetically. We know what the cost is gonna be. Now let's implement the new reappraisal and say we didn't implement the capital plan. Is it gonna cost us more in the future of a year or 2 years down the road after the reappraisal's been done versus doing it now? You know, kind of like Dr. Murray said too, though. I like the idea of being able to stabilize things. However, I don't live in a world where I can go out and buy everything I need cash. I have to finance a lot of things. So I do shop around for places that have good interest rates. But having the stabilization is good. But more importantly, knowing, is it gonna cost us more now to do the capital investment before reappraisal? Or after reappraisal, and we have to revisit it? Are those numbers gonna change substantially? Is it gonna be equalized out? Where does it sit on that? And I know that we don't know where we're gonna hit with reappraisal, other than everybody's property values going up, in theory, the tax can go down, but will that be reflected in this?
So the reappraisal does not impact the budget number. What the reappraisal does is it redistributes the budget based on valuation. So everybody's property is anticipated to increase, it just may not increase at the same rate. So the distribution of the budget may change based on everyone's new reappraised values. Whether it's cheaper to do the capital plan this year or next year, nothing, the total dollar amount is not going to change. If we delay it 1 year and we don't make any replacements, residual values will reduce, they'll be worth less, or we take out a loan and we borrow and we pay interest. I disagree with paying interest. I don't see the point of paying interest when we can do a capital plan that pays cash for everything. It's the responsible thing to do, in my opinion, for the town. I don't see why we'd want to spend an additional almost $3 million to the bank. Does that answer your question?
So basically, pretty much. So regardless, we're looking at what, 120,000 or $120 increase per 100,000, regardless of appraised value. So the dollar amount is gonna stay the same.
That's gonna, so next year, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I probably overcomplicated the question. I'm gonna get it.
No, I get where you're coming from. So the way that we would structure it based on the penny next year is gonna be different. The $119 might be per 200,000 of property value. You see what I'm saying?
So would it
Because
be
everyone's
easier
values
for,
may increase.
would it be easier for the taxpayer to swallow that type of investment, knowing that we're gonna get the same type of results?
It's gonna be the same thing. It's gonna be no difference. Like I said, the only difference is the distribution of the budget. The reappraisal doesn't drive a budget increase.
I understand that part, I'm just looking at the percentages of the taxes that go to it.
Let's say your property right now is let's say your property right now is worth 200,000, right? And then next year, and your neighbor's is worth 200,000, what do you say? And then it gets, and let's say your tax bill is 1,000 and your neighbor's tax bill is 1,000. Both of your properties get reappraised, and now your property value is 310,000 and your neighbor's is 250,000. Because yours increased at a more significant rate, maybe you added a garage. So now the distribution of your taxes on the total budget is gonna be more than your neighbors. But the amount that we're requesting in taxation isn't gonna change. Whether we approve a capital plan or not, it's not gonna change the total budget unless we don't do it and then we add principal and interest payments.
Yeah,
And then we're just paying that interest to the bank. It's not serving us any benefit. So I get the break even point. The question, to put together a chart to see when the break even point is, and I can do that. It's gonna take significant time for me to do that. I would say like 40 to 60 hours of time to do something like that. I don't mind doing something like that. But it is really, really common.
What about projected budget over time with or without capital plan?
So what you're asking me to do is, and let me just kind of break it down. So what I'll have to do is calculate the amortization schedules for every single piece of equipment purchase at the time of replacement. So there'll be an amortization schedule. So let's look at our total amount of equipment here. And I'll just give you an idea of what that would look like as far as for equipment.
Good thing there was a cap on it.
And I don't mind doing it, but we do have a lot of things that are gonna get behind if I focus all of my time there.
I think that's incredibly important. Brandon, that question, Brandon.
There's a question over here.
Yeah.
Brandon.
I think my is it even possible to answer this question accurately? Because we're talking about two vectors and we're talking about replacement values and speculating on when things are gonna break down, correct? I just want to put I want to set the expectations accurately, so that if we're asking you, if anybody's asking you to do this task, I want to make sure that we can accomplish this task. Excuse me, I'm not calculating. But I want the expectations to be, reasonable on what it is we're asking, so.
It's a very complicated question to answer, and for me, it's not important for me, like either as a taxpayer in Springfield or in Weathersfield, to see the break-even point, because I know that there's 2.7 million in savings. So I'm gonna have to continue to go out and constantly chase the difference.
Would it be fair to say, to simplify it, would it be fair to his point? You could generalize this and say, here, our spending and revenue, our spending needs will basically be consistent, but the difference is we won't be paying interest. And the difference also is the speed, the time and space in which we collect the revenue.
Yeah.
When you do the capital plan, you're front loading the revenue, but you're still going to collect that revenue over time. The only difference is your spending is going to include interest.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. Let me just go to this chart real quick. This is regardless of what property values do, or what budgets do, or whatever else happens. The bottom line is that if we borrow, the pay for our equipment is going to cost us $12.4 million. If we move to the capital plan, it's going to cost the town $9.6 million. The difference between the two is the amount the town saves over 20 years. On an average annual basis, borrowing to pay for our equipment can cost us $655,000. Moving to a capital plan, we're going to pay $510,000 on average. So the difference between borrowing and a capital plan is roughly $145,000. This capital plan, when we get it, this took into consideration a number of different things. Like, we looked back at the past 20 years of fire truck purchases and plow trucks and graders, and how much percent per year the cost of those equipments increased. And we used that increase to build off of the number up to the replacement date. And then we did the same for the residual value. So instead, the numbers are very accurate. We also took into consideration accumulated interest earnings based on what's in the bank. So as we have money in the bank, and I'm going to go to this slide right here. So you see the balance, the motorized highway equipment replacement schedule, the balance all the way to the right. It's fluctuating. So as this balance sits in the bank, we're collecting interest on it. The bank is paying this interest. And that money that we earn in interest, we can reallocate the budget to draw the total budget that we would raise by taxes down. So the bank is paying town money. On our reserve accounts, and we're using that money that the bank pays us to help pay for our operating needs. It's. It's pretty. Do you understand that? Hey, you kind of.
No, I hear what you're saying, I think we're being, or to be honest, I think I've said it before several times. I just think, taxpayer facing is different, right, and I think Carl's point is, hey, if we're gonna say saves money, show them where the break-even point is. And I think that, and I know, and it's gonna be an estimate, it's not gonna be perfect, these aren't perfect. These are projections, right, and I think it would be compelling to be like 5 years out is when you're gonna see like when you're would eclipse it. I do think Dave's other point is a philosophical one is an interesting one, right? Like, do you do you get Macs or for computers or do you get PCs? One lasts a lot longer, the other and it costs significantly more. I mean, he's talking about trucks, but and that's just being able to explain that is what needs to happen, whether I don't know.
So to do the task. So for FY 27, that 500,000, we would amortize it, right? We show the principal, the interest, and the payment. And the same in over 5 years. And you have to overlap payments and continue to do that for every single withdrawal.
Yeah, I think
And then look at that difference as compared to this difference in order to get that number.
Yeah, I think an estimated graph would be. I know you're gonna go super detailed, and I don't. I mean, I do think an estimated graph that is reasonable, like you just say, this is an estimate, right? That is reasonable based on what you know. Would be very powerful. I mean, I do the same thing when I look at this. I look at it and say, what's my taxes gonna go up? Like. I'm sure I'm not the only person who's like looking at that.
I'm not trying
I
to.
got Josh.
Yeah, I'm sticking my neck out there now, Rick.
Josh first.
As a taxpayer, I find tremendous value in the stability of financial planning into my future. And knowing year over year that I have to spend this much money is far superior to the roller coaster that we've done in the past, and trying, to Mike's point about balancing, oh, we're a little low on the budget this year, let's try to buy a piece of equipment. And I've been here for those conversations, and I've been here for failed article votes at town meeting that keep us with vehicles that don't last. When I look at these charts, so before that, the question shouldn't be whether or not to do a capital plan. If you're going to buy the equipment, it only makes sense to do this plan. Financially, this is the best way to purchase things if you're going to purchase them. I will also say that being involved with vehicle maintenance costs and looking at how emissions have affected things, how shop rates have doubled in the past 5 years, parts availability is down, mechanics are down, so downtime is up. It compounds the problem of having this equipment available. Ray didn't say it, but I know that he was down 2 trucks yesterday, 3 trucks trying to sand yesterday morning.
Sunday.
Is today Tuesday? Okay, Sunday morning. That doesn't help anybody either. The stability that this offers, I'm going to pick the worst year that I found, but fiscal year 44. There's a $1.3 million withdrawal from the fire apparatus reserve fund and a $576,000 withdrawal from the highway motorized fire or motorized reserve fund. So that's $2.3 million. What does that do to the tax bill if we don't plan ahead and set money aside? And yes, that's what's that?
What year was that?
44. That's the worst year, but there are some other years that are not great. Fiscal year 30, we're asking for 581 out of fire, followed by 283 in fiscal year 31 from highway. Those are smaller numbers, but it's still a lot of money and it's a lot of money because of the cost of goods that's gone up since COVID. And unfortunately, we can't change the cost of goods. We are stuck with that in our personal lives. We are stuck with that at this table. But those costs have driven, I mean, if you look at the fire apparatus reserve side and the replacement costs. We would have never fathomed 10 years ago that we would be paying this much money for fire apparatus. Never in our wildest dreams. And not only are people paying it, there's a 3-year backlog in most cases, 2 to 3 year backlog. To then get the equipment. So just a couple of points that I think are pertinent.
We got Ray over here.
Yeah.
Bill.
I just wanted to add, Dave had a valid point about getting a heavier duty truck, having it last 20 years. Those trucks don't exist anymore. I hate to be not negative, but like Mack used to be a single manufacturer. They had all their own parts. Everything was made by them and they were a rock solid truck. Now everybody shares the same parts. Everything gets made overseas and assembled in America. Plastic radiators. And this budget doesn't even include the cost savings where our T16 went over to get a radiator put in, plus the DEF system had to be repaired. It came out to just over $15,000. If it was under warranty, that $15,000 never would have come out of our budget. It would have been covered. All that stuff would have been covered under warranty. It wasn't like brakes. Same thing with the 2012, 2 years ago, we spent over like $7,000 on the suspension system. We spent $8,000 on it this year for the body and the frame and the tailgate latches. You know, those are things that aren't considered in this capital plan as savings.
Go ahead.
Actually, I have 2 questions. The first one is, do you have time, for instance, like removing that technology article, I think was a great recommendation, but do you have time before you have to publish a warning to, as a select board, reconvene to consider that as a business matter? I don't know when your deadline is.
To remove Article 12.
Yeah, I was just curious, that was the first question is do you have the ability or time or capability to do that?
I disagree with it. I think we need a technology reserve fund. So that does 2 things, and then you wouldn't see that on the ballot next year.
Okay, so that's just my thought is I just wasn't sure if you had the time or space to debate or change any articles before you publish the warning.
You can do both.
Yeah.
You can create the article separately without a deposit. And put the nine, and still do what Dave recommended and put it in the general fund this year. And then next year, when you move into your, or you have your capital plan, if you've already planned money from your capital plan, as long as you've created the account, you can put the money in there.
The comment from a budget standpoint is you're more likely to have successful approval of your capital plan articles if there's one less. And you're more likely to have people read the articles if there's one less. From a town meeting and election voting standpoint. The second question I have, and this is probably a deep one, is I'm getting the feeling the reason I'm here at this hearing is I really came in here with an open mind, is I wanted to hear how everybody felt. And knowing that Ray supports this, and knowing that, so I should say Mr. Stapleton and Mr. Campo, knowing that they support this as key department heads makes a big impact for me, as a voter. And then, so the question for the select board is, are you and the town manager all unified behind supporting this capital plan? And are you ready as town leaders to collectively say, hey, we as a team, the departments, the town manager, the select board, we're all asking voters to join us in supporting this, because that's gonna make a difference, because there's very little knowledge out there in Weathersfield on what they're going to be expected to vote on, because public just hasn't been real engaged. So I just was sharing that with you. That's just a thought to consider is in terms of your communication strategy, the public is, it would make a big difference for me if I hadn't been attending budget meetings or select board meetings on this stuff. It would make a difference knowing that our fire chief and our highway department were like, yeah, this is what we need to do. And here's why. So.
Mark?
I just have one quick question. I'm talking broad strokes as far as the considerations, and I know it's just speculation on where it becomes profitable, but to me, where the vectors intersect is what it is we're talking about for people voting for this capital improvement plan. And for me, it comes simply down to this. I know it's just an estimate on where it hits, but voting for this is an absolute yes if I'm planning on spending 20 years in this town. I'm voting no on this if I'm only gonna stay here for 2 years. I'm just thinking about this. Am I thinking about it correctly? Just to the board, you've crafted this plan. Would that be accurate? Just if I'm talking to my neighbors about it and they're saying, oh, it all comes down to the personal household income and what it is you can afford, how squeezed you are with your healthcare increases and everything else. But am I thinking about this in the right way?
Can I answer that so that it answers itself?
Go ahead.
I would wish you didn't say that to anybody.
Okay.
And that should answer that question for you already, because who wouldn't think like that? If I know I'm selling my house, I got my house up for sale. And I'm gonna sell it next year or the year after, or I know I'm moving in 2 years.
Right.
Why would I, as that person, why would I want to pay $400 more over the next 200, well, actually 400 or more over the next couple of years? I'm not even gonna be here.
That's exactly.
That's what you were saying.
We're completely agreed. Yes.
Yeah, that's why I said.
And I wanted to be told that I'm thinking about it incorrectly if I am.
So I have not considered that.
I got Ray over here first.
I would argue that point, and say you are thinking about it incorrectly, because for the next 2 years, instead of paying $400 extra a year, without a plan, you might be paying $500 extra a year. Because you have to throw the interest in there. We're gonna borrow money to buy that equipment, and your taxes are gonna be higher because you're gonna have to pay back the interest and everything.
And you have to also include the repairs that we may be facing
Yes.
if we don't replace the equipment
Right.
next year.
So
Thank you, Jim.
it'll save you a few bucks,
I got
even in a couple of years, as opposed to 20.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good question.
Bob, do you?
I'm very covered.
Okay.
Everybody's quiet.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'll go. Joe, you had brought up the reappraisal and I love Brandon to death, but sometimes the way the words he uses, it just go right over my head. So I'm for everybody, I'm gonna try to simplify what reappraisal is going to do. We started with 2 houses at $200,000. Okay, let's start with 2 budgets that are exactly the same. The one before the appraisal and the one after the appraisal. The amount, which is what Brandon pointed out, the dollar amount is not changed. Okay, so when you have the reappraisal, what happens is your property value changes the grand list, which is where the computation or the math comes from. And your tax rate goes down. Your house value goes up, grand list goes up, and your tax rate comes down. The bottom line doesn't change on those 2 budgets. There's 0 change there on those 2 budgets. Then these things get factored in after that. But if the budgets are exactly the same for those 2 years, before and after, there's no change to the bottom line.
Because if the appraisal went up and the grand list went up and the tax rate stayed the same, instead of making $1 million in your taxes, you're gonna be making 1.5 million in your taxes. So you're gonna be overtaxing people. So you'd have to adjust your tax rate down to come up with the same amount of money because your values are higher.
Yeah, my takeaway from the question whether there is no change on the rate of it, which is kind of good.
No, the rate does change.
No, there's no change to the cost of dollars.
Correct.
That's where I was at with it.
That is correct.
Maybe for there, because one way that could be quote easier to sell it is like after reappraisal is that $120 would only cost you $98. But it doesn't change anything, so it's a moot point. That's where I was at.
You'd have to figure out every single house, how much they change in value now.
Yeah, it's a huge monumental math question.
Yes.
I appreciate people showing their interest.
Not many. Not many. Did I scare one away?
I almost brought some. Yeah.
I like the way that it stabilizes things for the foreseeable future. That to me is huge. And I'm planning on staying here 20, 30 years, it's nice to know that we don't have this big up and down, up and down. On these things, nothing goes down in price, nothing does. This at least controls it and plans for it, so.
Thank you all for the work you're putting in on.
You okay, Brendan?
I would say even if you're selling your house in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
This is a very hypothetical. What does the value of your house look like if you live in a community that prioritizes the services for its citizens?
That's a quite, that's a.
Same thing with schools.
I apologize,
And I obviously cannot apply a number to that. That's a very deep question, but.
I forgot to ask earlier, and Brandon, you stepped out, but I think somewhere it was said that this gets us in a better position for grant applications. Or sort of
Yeah.
municipally, and I think that that's a value to the voter too.
I know we're kind of having an open discussion here, so I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Just not overlap.
Nope, we're gonna, one thing that'll help us focus on is once you get, if you get the capital plan approved, you know where you are on borrowing for equipment. I could see getting bonds to replace bridges. And you don't have to worry about conflicting with buying equipment, having the tax rate go up that year and having a loan for 20 years or 10 years for a $5 million bridge. Could we have those things out there? And we are competing right now with, do I replace culverts or do I use the 30,000 to pay back a truck loan? That would go away. We'd have to be able to invest in our real infrastructure that takes loans and big bonds in the future. Anyway, just a side note. Shh, he's back.
You have a question on mine.
We got a question on, I got a Marcus 14. I don't know who you are. If you can say who you are, please, and then ask the question.
We can't hear you, Marcus.
That's
I think you're muted. I can't see the things on the
Yeah,
side.
He's muted.
They're muted.
There's a lot of things written on the side. I can't see what people are typing there. Do you want one of us to go through it? Patience, can you see what people are texting us, sending us emails?
They were back and forth about how there was no video.
Oh, okay. There's no video.
It's there now.
Oh, okay. But we still can't hear Marcus, so.
I've asked him to unmute a couple times. He hasn't done it. She don't know who it is.
Well, he went out.
Oh, no, I got
Okay, so let's do the approval of the meeting warning. Is that what we do next? Do we
Are we done with the public hearing? Are we?
Yes, yeah,
do we have to close the hearing?
Well, Mark, are you done with the hearing?
Marcus is
back. Marcus, do you wanna try again?
There we go.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Can you say who you are, please?
Yeah, the name is Mark Waldman.
Thank you. You have a question?
I do. So as I understand it, with the capital plan, there's a certain dollar amount that's going into funds every year for the purchase of equipment, right? So it sounds like we're behind in equipment purchases. So for the first couple of years, would we actually have enough money set aside for all the purchases that need to be made to catch up? Or are we still looking at borrowing in order to make those necessary acquisitions?
So the answer is, by moving into this capital plan this year, yes, we will have enough money to replace everything according to the plan.
Without borrowing.
We do currently have debt on a couple of pieces of equipment. That debt will mature in FY30. From that point forward, the town will not have any debt on any equipment.
Excellent, thank you.
Got a thumbs up from them.
I had something I was just gonna throw out. DeForest, you might remember this, but I don't know, maybe not. It comes from something that Josh or Chief said. I remember the capital plans that we used to look at, I think back when Jim, I might have been Jim Mullen was here. And we had that big spreadsheet and it showed all of our debts and how they,
It was, and,
and down the bottom, you could see each year what what it was gonna be, and it went along like 200 and something, 300 something, 200 something, and when you got out about 8 years, 9 years, you might even remember it too. You got out about 8 or 9 years, and all of a sudden there was this like $600,000, $700,000. They just down there was like, that's that roller coaster that goes away with all of this, and because it's just.
I think there was a year that I wanna say there was a police cruiser, a grader and a dump truck or something, and the way we were borrowing money. That's my vague memory, but because the grader's such a big purchase, and I think it was one of the first ones that we were trying to get into the warranty period, that was a huge, it was a roller, that's the only way to describe it.
Right, yeah. It was just information.
We still do that sheet. The treasurer does it, it's up on the screen.
Yep.
So it shows our debt schedule. And it shows when our debt matures, which is FY30. We don't have much. We've been transitioning for the past 5 years. We've been moving gradually to a cash-based system. But this completes that entirely.
okay. Do I need a motion to close the
No, you're just closing your,
okay,
declare your.
declare the public hearing closed for the capital plan? I don't know what time it is, I think 19. Okay. Let's go on to approve the town meeting warning.
So, Kelly, is the board gonna make a decision on the capital plan tonight? If you look at the agenda, in the way that the statute is written, the board would have to consider and receive public comments on the proposed capital plan, and then vote on whether or not to approve it.
How detailed a motion do you need?
I think the motion should just include approval of the.
I think that the warning stated that the select board would go into, would deliberate. Are we done deliberating?
I'm saying. Where does it show in the warnings that we're entering into this 30-year?
In the warning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Public hearing notice or the town meeting? Because we're talking about people voting this, possibility of people voting this down, where are they gonna be able to, I don't see in here where they can vote down.
Yeah, we put down the articles. Right.
All the other articles.
Yeah.
Yes, the articles you approved yesterday. Including the capital plan articles.
No, we didn't approve those yesterday. It'd be Article 10, 11, 12. Those are the capital plan. But we haven't approved those yet. We have to approve them to be on for tonight. Got there. After we. And then all part of the capital plan.
So the board, if it wishes to proceed, I would ask the board to approve the capital plan as proposed.
Is that's as detailed as?
Yep.
Brandon.
Including technology, fire apparatus, and highway motorized equipment.
Functionally, what happens if the board approves the capital plan and then the voters reject the article?
We hold a special town meeting. And try again. Restructure it to option 2, borrowing $250,000 in year 1.
Okay. So basically it would be a rethinking on how to fund the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep trying.
Yeah, all we're doing is proving it to be on the warrant. We're not approving the
The money.
It could be an agreement that we want it to happen, but it's not up to us anymore, it's up to the voters.
But what I heard Brendan just say is we
Yeah,
are
we have to.
approving it, we just don't, we can't. Approve the actual raising of.
We can't make it
funds.
happen, right?
Right, until the taxpayers do, so we are.
We're approving
Officially.
what's being presented to the voters.
The voters can say no. That means.
Correct. No,
At
that's,
least
I
I
understand
understand the plan.
Isn't it, new one, that's what I was trying to understand,
The
like,
town raises the money, and it can say no on the money. But per statute, the board would have to approve the capital plan as proposed, and then we put the articles on to fund it.
I make a motion to approve the capital plan as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Okay. Any other business? We have to approve
Oh, we're not
the
done yet.
town meeting warning. We just approved the capital plan. Now we have to approve the warning, the actual warning. We have to. Are you looking at something different? I'm looking at the agenda.
Yeah. We have the
Approve
warning.
the town meeting warning. Where is it? Where is that? It's this thing, the 2-page thing. It's this down. That's the articles.
Correct.
Oh, we have to approve this is the warning for the annual town meeting.
All right.
Okay,
Are we there yet?
is there a motion to approve the warnings?
Do we want to have a discussion about the change to the article that was requested, or?
As soon as we go into discussion. We have to.
Well, if you do that, then you're gonna have to amend the
We just approved the capital plan.
yeah, I know, I'm talking about
To change that article, we need to change the capital plan.
Not really, no,
Well, the discussion was to take this article off
yes,
and put the money requested into the budget. And then you had said, take the money out of this article and put it in the budget, but leave the capital plan on the warning.
yes.
So we didn't reduce the number of articles at all by doing it that way. If the
Right,
goal is to reduce the number of articles, which is what Mr. Murray and Mr. Fuller wanted us to do.
right,
What you're proposing doesn't change the number of articles.
correct.
And the statute
Because then we have to go
requires,
back next year and fund the capital plan for IT.
I think it needs to stay on there.
You see what I'm
I'm
saying?
good, I'm
You're
good,
just putting it off.
Yeah, I'm good.
regardless, I mean, I heard that, and I thought about it, but regardless, I think if you're putting two of them on. You should put them all on, because regardless, like, would be the right thing to do, I think just making people have a choice.
I just have one question, and it's terribly late in the game to be asking this question, so forgive me. Health and Rehabilitative Services, it's Article 14, is that the full name of that agency?
It's HCRS.
Yeah,
So, I can run up and make that change real quick and print a new one.
would you, then we can just, well,
Yeah, no
I'm
problem.
ready to approve the whole thing, but I wasn't sure if that was the full name.
Yeah, it's probably inaccurate on my end, sorry about that.
No worries, no criticism, no judgment. I see you changed the visiting nurses one, that looks much better.
Yeah.
So is it possible for you to do that? I don't have any other objections to anything.
Did we look to see if all the proper
Oh,
paperwork
did
was
you
turned
get-
in for all of these?
Yes, so Suzanne did confirm that all the paperwork has been submitted
For all of these, I put a,
for all of the
Requested.
ones that requested it. And I do have the controls that are in place that govern these allocations. And it's within the social services policy.
Okay.
Which I believe we'll be reviewing soon.
yeah, because we want to know if these get passed, if the voters in good faith say, yeah, we'll give you this money, is it actually being spent appropriately on
Yeah,
Weathersfield residents? So I have no other problem with the warning, other than I just wasn't sure about that health and rehabilitative services. I think that the full name should be accurately presented.
and I'll run upstairs after you guys are done and I'll put the plain copy of the name.
For it to sign.
Yep.
The full name is Healthcare and Rehab Services.
So it's HCRS, yeah.
HCR.
Healthcare is one word, then and Rehab Services.
So do you need a motion? Healthcare. Yeah. Can I make a motion to approve the article with one change, to approve the warning. With the agreed to change in Article 14 to reflect the full name of the agency.
14,
What did I say?
15.
I thought I said 14.
Oh.
I meant 14.
Yeah, well, I'm old, I might have heard 15.
I heard 14. I heard, okay.
I can second that.
Any more discussion on the article? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Change it. Is there any other business before you, because we have nothing more, right?
I'm all set. I will be preparing for town meeting. Next Monday is Martin Luther King Junior Day, so town offices will be closed.
Expect them to be
I'm gonna
open.
work on those charts that everybody asked me to do. I'll do my best.
Does anybody on the board have any other business? Nobody not on. Anybody have any other business? Any other business? This is motion to adjourn.
So move.
We're just gonna wait for Brandon. Yeah, can we wait till he comes back? To adjourn? To adjourn.
Adjourn. Why?
I don't know.
He's not a member.
Just seems like we gotta finish what we're doing before we. All we gotta do is wait for him to bring
We
the
just gotta
papers.
sign it. He's correcting it, we just gotta sign it. We
All
do
those
it.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I don't know what time it is, but we're done. Even better than last night, right? Both pass, it's part of the rec article.
Well, I think it's the right.
I think it's really helpful.
Especially if you do this.
And it's gonna be way worse on town meeting day, because you're gonna. Everybody's gonna also know the school. And it's gonna be huge.
Oh, it's hitting inside.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the worst town meeting day. That's not all. Our recording figure are not gonna be because of vacation. So some of them are gone on vacation. Oh.
John's gonna stop
Can you shut up? I don't think, I don't sit down and pass. Either aspects of that, thank you.
Well, I was trying to make you.